Hello there, Jets fans. Welcome to episode number 76 of the JetSteam podcast. I'm Travis Rubinik. Today is May 24th. We are Joe Clark and Neil Noonan, who is still wearing an Apple Watch, which makes me so happy.
I kept it.
And it makes Joe happy that he wasn't here last week because he didn't have to talk about them for 25 minutes.
I wouldn't have talked. I would have just listened.
The boys are back, though.
Yeah. Fine. I feel like it's been a long time since we've had
it's been like 3 weeks.
Especially sitting at this table over here.
Yeah,
and
different
not in our
location.
usual seats. Yeah. Well, it's our original seats.
It's back to our roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, going back to the original.
Yeah, original JetStream.
Yeah.
Going old school. Throwback Sunday.
Yeah, throwback Sunday.
It's a beautiful weekend, and the sun has just drained me, so I'm kind of tired. I should have got some coffee on.
Yeah, coffee would have been a good idea.
You know what? It's a good episode today. I think we got some good stuff coming out. We're going to talk about some concussions. Talk about some ethical issues that may have appeared in the hockey world a little while ago. But the first thing we're going to bring up, because, Leafs. Mr. Babcock.
Yes. Fuck yeah, bud.
Leafs head coach. We're only going to talk about this for maybe 30 minutes. Seconds. Because I feel like a lot of you don't give a crap about this. Probably. So, you probably give a crap. You just don't want to hear about it from me because Leafs. It's obviously wonderful for Leafs fans. I'm pretty pleased. I don't expect the Leafs to be any good this year. I am pleased with their current setup. I know they don't have a GM yet, but I'm thinking it's probably going to end up being Mark Hunter. I don't know if that's for sure, but it's looking like that. But I'm pleased with Brendan Shanahan. I'm pleased with Kyle Dubas. I'm pleased with our head coach for the first time in God knows how long.
Yeah.
This is probably the happiest I've been with a head coach coming in since Pat Quinn, which is a long time ago.
That's a long time
ago. Yeah, I'm pleased right now, and it's going in the right direction. They're not saying stupid things. They want skill. They don't want size. They want good players. And yeah, it's just nice to be a Leaf fan for the first time in a while, and this is coming off one of a pretty rough seasons.
But like you said, I think it's still going to be a while before you get to see a lot of check marks in the W column.
Exactly.
It's a long process.
As he said during his press conference, there will be pain.
Yeah.
So it's going to be rough for the next little while, but it makes it almost worth it because I feel like you're going to see certain players. They're not going to be good, but you're going to see the right things starting to happen, and certain players starting to strive and hit their stride and just start taken off. And I feel like at least intelligent or educated Leaf fans will see that and be like, yeah, they suck, but it'll be okay.
There's hope.
There's hope. There's actual hope.
Yeah.
There's none of this fake hope that just lives around that area. So should be good going forward. Second thing I wanted to bring up, I didn't mention this to either of you guys before, so it's going to kind of be a random topic. Eugene Melnyk. You guys hear what happened with Eugene Melnyk a couple weeks ago?
I am aware of it, yes.
His liver issues. He pretty much he did need a liver donor as quick as possible. He had some serious health issues.
It was like within a week kind of situation.
Yeah,
2
or
weeks.
he would not be a living human being anymore. He needed a liver, and he owns a hockey team. So the Ottawa Senators came out publicly and said, you know what? He needs a liver. He's going to pretty much die without one. So if you're willing to donate, be a live donor, please contact us. The NHL kind of circulated around a little bit. Apparently they had 2,000 people respond, and he got a live donor. He found a match, and things were good. But of course, it was almost instantly brought up saying, is this ethical? Can someone do this? Blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to know what your guys' thoughts were on Eugene Melnyk doing this. If you thought there's ethical issues there, or what your kind of perspective is on that.
Well, I can absolutely understand why people would say that. There's people on waiting lists who are probably waiting for livers forever, right? And they don't have those connections. They can't get that kind of response. And
yeah.
That sucks. But
it does.
At the same time, if I needed a liver transplant and I had those resources available to me, if you're going to die in 2 weeks, you're going to do whatever you can.
Exactly. That's where it's kind of, what do you expect him just to not say anything and just die?
Yeah, maybe some people do expect that, right? Play with the hand you're dealt. But I think that goes part and parcel with if you have the opportunity to do a situation like he has. He's extremely lucky, and he is, a guy of influence.
Oh, exactly.
And he can have that situation work out for him. But I don't know. I think if I'm in his spot, I do the same thing.
Exactly. I don't
It's not like
he's using the resources available to him.
And it's not like they went out and say, hey, somebody has to donate a liver to this guy now.
Yeah.
It was just like, hey, he's going to die if he doesn't get a liver. who wants to help us out, please.
Yeah. Let's put it like, what if, and again, this is because of who he is. He's getting this attention in the first place. So is it ethical to call him out for using his resources? Is kind of the instant response, in my opinion. But you only need one person. Exactly. He could have had 2,000 people respond, and every single one of them could have not been a match.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then no one's saying anything again, and that's that.
And then he's dead.
Exactly. And what if it was like, I don't see a difference between this and a CEO of a company who, again, might get publicity because of who he is, or someone in a company sending out a mass email to everyone in the company saying, listen, I'm going to die without a liver. Is anybody willing to be the donor?
Yeah. And
then just going for it. And I get that people would have been, I think now that they've done that, there's a bit more of an onus on the Sens to be like, hey, you should probably donate livers, or like, if you can, do it, or sign your donor card and make it available, because there are people who die every day because they don't have this sort of opportunity. But you only need one person, and maybe the one person who I know and can talk to and be like, hey, I'm going to die if I don't have a liver. Maybe that person's a perfect match. And I know that's not the situation a lot of time. The waiting list has, I can't remember, there's thousands of people on it waiting to get livers and other organs. But I just don't see how that's an ethical issue when you use your resources. You asked the question and people came to you. You didn't go to your season ticket holders and say you don't get your season tickets unless you donate a liver.
Unless we find a match, yeah.
Exactly. They didn't force people to do it. They opened it up. And apparently the Sens Twitter account afterwards said that of the people who offered, they went back and contacted them again saying, would you be willing to donate to someone else? And I think they said they found more than 20 people who were willing to step forward and just donate to someone else random.
That's
because
awesome.
They went forward already.
See, that's already a huge step. Like,
exactly. That's 20 more lives that were saved.
That's a lot.
So, shut up.
Yeah.
I get the question was asked and it got page clicks and got some attention, but I just think it's a really dumb question to ask, because what are you expecting to do?
Yeah.
Sorry, Eugene Melnyk, you're popular, so you're not allowed to ask for help.
Yeah.
I don't like that. But the big question for today, or the big topic that we're going to cover today. For those of you who don't know, I'm studying my master's. I'm studying my master's right now. I've mentioned it a few times on the podcast, but for newer listeners, maybe don't know. And I am specializing in concussion research and working towards helping find diagnostic things and return to play different things and ways to treat concussions. So, naturally, when the commissioner of the NHL comes out and says something about them...
Okay, I don't even know what he said, so...
I'll get to that, and then I want you guys' responses to what you think about it, and then we'll go forward from there. He said a little something about concussions and CTE. I'm just going to pull something up quickly here to make sure everybody... Concussions and CTE, that was a little controversial, and some people didn't like. So, do you guys know what CTE is?
What does it stand for? Chronic
traumatic, always say this word wrong, encephalopathy.
Okay.
Oh.
That's brain swelling? Or
it is a progressive degenerative disease which currently can only definitely be diagnosed post-mortem in individuals.
Oh, okay.
Again, it says in this thing a history of multiple concussions and forms of head injury. So basically, it's somewhat like Alzheimer's, where there's these tau proteins and certain proteins in your brain that hold everything together and keep it all together. Those degenerate, and you literally get like little holes in your brain. And when you have holes in your brain, nothing good happens. So it causes dementia, and depression, and all these sorts of things that often leads to people committing suicide because they can't function. They are not yourself anymore. Your brain's literally degenerating while you're alive. You die, and then they're like, "Oh, he had CTE," because there's no way to diagnose it. There was a new article, and I think TSN made a big deal of it that they found a way to diagnose CTE in someone who's alive. Their science was kind of iffy, and their methods were not perfect. So it's the kind of response to that. Anyways, Gary Bettman. Right now there is another lawsuit coming to the NHL. Steve Montador's family, they found widespread CTE in his brain, and they believe it was connected again to the concussions and hockey, and there's a big lawsuit with the NHL hiding the results of concussions and what they cause long-term and not letting players know, and players playing through concussions, being forced to play through concussions, all that stuff. We're not going to get into that. I'm here today to answer some questions that people have sent. Well, I'm here every week, so it's not different. But today, I'm going to answer some questions that people have sent us, along with... there's a gruesome injury.
That was really bad.
Joe looked at it.
I
and
looked
he
at the
like
TV
it.
at a really bad time there.
Oh, it was Kyle Korver's.
That was gross.
Anyway, so if you guys have... Some people sent questions. Joe, Neil, if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer them. But first, what did Bettman have to say? He reiterated his stance on, I believe it was Thursday night, stating, this is a quote, From a medical science standpoint, there is no evidence yet that one necessarily leads to the other, said Bettman to reporters on hand. I know there are a lot of theories, but if you ask people who study it, they tell you there is no statistical correlation that can definitely make the conclusion. And again, that's the connection between concussions and CTE.
Yeah.
Basically, Bettman's saying there's no evidence to say that one causes the other. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know if that's 100% true or not, simply because I don't know the numbers. Mm-hmm. From my impression, that's all that he had to say. That was kind of his...
I think that was the summing up of it. That's the only quote that I've really seen.
From what I understand of concussions and CTE, which is obviously very limited, it's that there's nothing definitive, and that's the thing with concussions is there is nothing like absolutely 100%. Yeah, we know this is what causes it. This is how we fix it. Blah blah blah. That's something that Travis, you've said to me a million times is. There are lots and lots of theories and ideas, but nothing is 100%.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's kind of the same situation when it comes to correlating those two things, right? Obviously, when you have a ton of concussions in your life, it's possible that you die and they cut your brain open and, oh, wow, CTE. But there are also other situations where that doesn't happen, right? Mm-hmm. So it's hard to say, 100% one way or the other. So, I mean... I understand his standpoint, right? I mean, he's standing up for, like, he's saying...
He's in the middle of a lawsuit right now.
He's saying what he kind of has to say. Like, it would almost be a conflict of interest if he were to say, oh, yeah, it totally does cause CTE. Tons of concussions cause CTE. 100%, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, no ground to stand on anymore.
Yeah, it seems like that's kind of what he has to say. I mean, other than completely ignoring it, if he's going to comment on it, I think those are, like, sort of the comments he has to make.
Yep. And the thing is... You're right. That's exactly it. Bettman, I tweeted a sequence about, again, on Thursday night. He is right in what he said. On a technicality, but he is right. At this point in time, there have been... You hear CTE, it's tossed out all the time. You hear about it all the time. There aren't that many cases of it. Compared to other injuries and things like that, there really haven't been that many cases of CTE because... First of all, if someone has to agree to getting
their brain
looked at afterwards, they have to know that they're looking for it and it wasn't Alzheimer's. There's ways to tell the difference, but still. And you have to understand that the person you're looking at and find CTE in had a history of concussions and played professional sport. Yeah. So you've got to find a professional athlete who's had a history of concussions that dies and is willing to have his brain diagnosed and find CTE.
Yeah.
So finding all of those things doesn't happen very often.
There's a lot of boxes to tick there.
Exactly. It's happened a lot more often recently because science is kind of pointing to it, and a lot more athletes are saying, yeah, if I'm going to die, I might as well see what happened and see maybe I can help somebody else in the future going forward. But at this point in time, there's not a lot of actual saying, yes, CTE, this is what's going on, done. So for anybody to kind of say anything about it, there's not a big enough history. Stats nerds know this off hop. You need a big enough sample size before you can make any sort of definite conclusion.
Yeah.
That being said...
you can understand the trends.
Yes. Again, you can understand the trends. On top of the whole not that many CTE things, we don't have a diagnosis, like an actual diagnosis for concussions yet.
Exactly.
It's all 100% symptom-based.
Yeah.
The guidelines are straight out. If they have X number of symptoms, probably a concussion. Again, probably.
It's always the probably.
There's never we don't even know if people are recovered from them yet fully. It's just that you're not feeling it anymore and you can do things and you're not sick and you're not feeling side effects.
Well,
you're probably
it's
healed.
not a viral thing, it's not a bacterial thing. There's no physical
no blood test.
There's no actual thing you can't look and be like, "Oh yeah, there's that bacteria in your blood that's causing you to be effed up."
Yet.
There's no concussion bacteria, right? So, I mean,
there are proteins that people are starting to connect, but again, it's all they don't know. It might be, but they're not for sure. So yeah, if you can't really draw those conclusions saying, okay, concussions are a thing that we can't really diagnose yet, and CTE a thing that we don't really have a lot of, and just instantly say yes, 100% they're put together.
But you can't take them and separate them completely either.
Exactly. That being said, a lot of these people that they found CTE in do have that history of concussions.
Right, so
a lot of people that they had, like, these connections have been there. There's a reason the connection is put there.
Yeah.
Because it's very strong evidence at this point, again, limited, but it's pretty strong evidence to say that, yes, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. And I think I understand why Bettman went and said this because, again, like you said, he can't go out and say anything else. And he's technically right. And no one can really say 100% for sure multiple concussions cause CTE. But he looks kind of stupid saying it because it's a technicality.
Yeah.
And it leads him to other problems when there's so many things pointing to it that now all these athletes who are still in this sport can come back now and say, this is what you told us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of evidence to hint towards it, but this is what you said.
It may have been different if, like you said, they were in the midst of a lawsuit, but who knows?
Yeah. I think it just opens himself up to more potential lawsuits.
I mean, we've said a million times with Bettman comments, he's a smart friggin' guy. He knows what to say.
Yeah,
and
he's a lawyer.
I think, exactly. So, even if he understands the things that we're talking about, and I'm sure he does have an understanding, he knows that all he needs is the technicality.
Exactly.
And so that's what he's going to go with. And like I said, in his position, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah. So before I get to some of the questions that people have asked, and before I ask you guys if you have any questions specific, when I'm talking about anything, if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them at me, and I'll see what I can do with them. I'm just going to quickly talk about what we do know and what is currently used for concussions. For a diagnosis, it's basically, like we said, you can do an MRI, you can do other things, and it gives you a bit more of a clue. If someone's brain, right now it's believed that it's called the neurometabolic cascade. So your brain needs energy to work, as does every other part of your body. It needs sugars. It needs to be able to suck that out of your blood, or it takes it out of your blood, uses it, metabolically does things, and you have energy and your brain works.
Does science stuff.
Yeah, science stuff. When you have a concussion, your brain doesn't do that properly. There's a lot of things and a lot of pulling and a lot of axons and neurons that just kind of break or pull or yank, and things don't work properly anymore. And your brain kind of just doesn't know what it's doing anymore. Sends blood to the wrong spots, throws a lot of blood in certain areas, too little blood in other areas, trying to fix itself, but you're still thinking. So when you hurt yourself, people tell you, okay, don't use it for a while, let it recover. You can't stop using your brain.
Yeah.
You're always using your brain, so it can't just heal. That's why people tell you to go to the quiet room, not try to take it easy. Don't limit the stimulation that's going on. To stay in a dark room so you don't have to look at things and stuff like that. That's why you do it, because it's giving your brain that chance to kind of rethink and put itself back together nice and easy. There's things with your autonomic nervous system that are thrown off. We're doing some research with that. There's a bunch of different things that are going on that your brain's just not working properly. As a repercussion of that, certain things can be seen in MRI. Again, a lot of them, there's no baseline, so you don't know. If someone just hits their head, if you don't have the baseline information of what it looked like before, you can't tell what it looks like now. On top of that, MRIs take some time, and you don't usually take all that time to, in between a game, decide whether or not someone can go back.
Yeah.
So most concussions are diagnosed using symptoms, especially in kids or people who don't have the resources to just walk into an MRI whenever they want to. They're not all professional athletes, right?
Yeah.
So there are tools. There's an impact test, the SCAT, or the sideline concussion test. SCAT is short term. There's a third version of it now that asks you to do a few simple tests. They ask you a bunch of symptom-based questions, basically, and see if you have a headache, if you have nausea, if you were knocked out. Again, you don't need to be knocked out to get a concussion, but it's a pretty good clue. You could also get knocked out and not have a concussion. It's possible. All these different things are asked of a person. If they rate themselves higher than they usually do, they say, okay, you have a concussion. The problem is, again, you need a baseline.
Yeah.
A lot of these athletes know that these tests are used for these things, so maybe they'll throw a couple numbers up higher than usual just so they have a little bit harder to actually be off to say they have a concussion. Or they're doing the impact test, they'll take a little bit of delayed time to respond to the things because they know they won't be able to do it perfectly when they have a concussion. There's problems there. Athletes flub these things. Athletes don't understand what a concussion is. They don't know what's going on. They don't know the repercussions. So there's a lot of issues in that in itself. On top of all that, concussions don't just happen instantly symptomatic. You could smack your head one day and the next night start feeling symptoms. So that's where the whole, okay, you go into a quiet room and then you go from there. Okay, but you could also start feeling symptoms the next day.
Yeah.
There's no way to know for sure. So there's another problem in there's a lot of problems with diagnosis because we don't have a blood test.
Especially in sports, right?
Exactly, where
you don't
it's
have that,
quick. You need to know because are we putting them back in the game or not?
If I hit my head playing soccer on Tuesday night, it's really not, I might sit out the rest of the game, and that's what a professional athlete might do if they feel symptoms. But then, the next day I'm just still doing my regular stuff, just walking around, whatever, and then I start to feel bad. It's not a big deal. Whereas a professional athlete, it's like, well, they hit their head, they felt okay right after, and then the next day they've got another game, and they're not sure if they want to say that they don't feel right because they felt okay before, but now they're feeling weird, but they have a game at 6 o'clock now. And so it's just a problem.
Exactly. And personally, I think if you think you might have a concussion or you hit your head, the easiest answer, don't play them. Mm-hmm. But again, I'm not paid millions of dollars. You're not paid millions of dollars to play soccer. No. There's a lot of external factors that are coming into this. I mean, it'd be a lot easier if you could prick a finger, do a quick blood test, and tell you if you have a concussion or not. We're not there yet. We're getting there. There's researchers, I think in Sweden, there's a big group of people working on it. We're not there yet.
It's always Sweden.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, exactly.
So progressive.
Well, they get taxed up the butt, and that's why they are able to do all
that's
this.
That's true. Isn't it
it's
taxed like 50%?
Yeah, but they don't pay for anything.
Yeah,
right.
It's
Yeah,
50%. It's like 47 or something like that.
Other side of it, return to play. Right now, there's a 7-step protocol that people are supposed to go through. It's supposed to be absolutely nothing.
I have my doubts how closely these things are followed. You can tell just by watching on TV.
How many times do you see a guy get hit and then he's actually out for a week?
Never.
That should be the baseline minimum.
Unless there's an actual physical, like he hurt his knee or lower body injury kind of thing. Those are the only times it ever happens.
Yeah. There's supposed to be a 7-step return to play protocol that athletes follow whenever they have a concussion. Just going to pull it up so I don't forget one here. It goes through, basically you do nothing, then you do a little bit more, and you keep going through. It's nothing, get up and walk, get up and run a little bit harder, go back to practice without contact practice. You're supposed to get medical clearance, then you can go back to full contact, everything going on, and then play.
Like that, whatever. Like that, I can't even imagine that happening.
Exactly. It's supposed to be like nothing, walking around. If it's physical rest, cognitive rest, pretty much. Start getting back into doing your regular routine. Start getting back to strenuously exerting yourself a little bit. Really going hard with no contact.
All the time evaluating yourself.
Exactly. Every step of the way, you're supposed to be symptom-free the next day.
Yeah.
If you aren't symptom-free, you go back a step.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
No,
it does not happen.
There's no way.
On
and I mean,
top
how
of
many
that,
times have you seen just a guy get absolutely leveled or like smoke his head into the boards and you're like, oh my god, that looks like it could easily be a concussion, and they don't even go to the quiet room.
Exactly.
They just stay on the bench, and you see the trainer come over, whisper in their ear, and you can see them say, "Yeah, I'm good," and then it's just done, and you're like,
"Yep,
that's not a concussion protocol. That's a joke."
Exactly, and that's a sport where you can see everything that's happening. Never mind football, where there's so much going on, you probably miss a lot of them.
You miss what's really happening on the sidelines for the most part, unless they're focusing on it.
And what's happening on the field with a lot of these guys. So they're easy to miss in a lot of sports. And on top of all that, it goes from just the physical side of it. Never mind me having to react to things or having to hear all this noise or all this other stuff coming in that are all extra stimulation that people are just thrown into because they start playing sports again. Blowing a whistle is a huge sharp thing that your brain has to instantly take and adapt and fix so you don't blow your eardrums. Yeah. So there's a lot going on instantly in these things that people just don't account for, and it's very, very minimal at this point, and we're in the caveman stage of concussion research right now. So it's not a lot is known, and we know what we need to get to, but it's very difficult to find one way to get there because there's so much going on. We don't even know everything your brain can do yet. So it's difficult to keep going with. So do you guys have any quick baseline questions before I get to some of the Twitter questions that we were asked?
No, give her.
All right. So the first one, it was asked by our boy Andrew Campbell at Victory4201. His question was, what would constitute proof of the link between concussions and CTE, or are we stuck in a climate change sort of loop? Here's the thing. First of all, you need to find a diagnosis for concussions. You need to be able to say, this is a concussion, 100%, this is what it is.
That's definitely the first step.
That's step one.
Yeah, if you don't have that, then you're
be able to, without a doubt, 100% diagnose every concussion. Yeah. On top of all this, by the way, there is good research to show that whole neurometabolic cascade that occurs, that actually doesn't repair itself for weeks on end. But you try to tell an athlete that they had a concussion, no matter what, they're not getting back for weeks. Very difficult to do. So that's another loop thrown into this whole thing, is that we know people aren't fully recovered after they feel better. Yep. We know that already. So it's difficult on top of everything. So we need to do our first step. You need to 100% diagnose concussions. Know this is showing us this guy had a concussion without a doubt. This is what's going on. Then on top of that, you probably need to find a way to diagnose CTE in someone who's alive. So there's people who've said they've done that. Again, that's one group in a potentially questionable method. That needs to be repeated and shown multiple times in tons of people for it to actually work. And for you to know for sure you're actually diagnosing it properly, you need to find it in people. They all need to die, and then you need to diagnose it again.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to be able to do
verify it.
Exactly. They can't even technically, you're not even actually diagnosing Alzheimer's. You're saying you probably have Alzheimer's. So you can't know until you get their brain.
Could have CTE.
Exactly. They could have multiple things.
Yeah.
So they need to figure that out first, and then you need to start multiple studies happen to actually link the two.
So I think the answer is, for the time being, yes, we're stuck in a loop, because those things are not going to be coming quickly.
No, not at all. It's going to be years before that actual 100% connection is made there, which is why I think we're pretty safe to say it is there until we're proven wrong.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that research progresses. Andrew had asked us another question on top. He said the concussion seems to be seen as a dirty word. It's kind of a bit of a funnier question. Do you prefer knuckle sandwich, got his bell rung, or brain oopsie?
Brain oopsie. Brain oopsie's a new one.
Just because I study it, I stick with concussion. There's also...
I think stick with the professionalism.
Yeah, a little bit. I think, honestly, to get a better message across of what it could be referred to as, medically, it's concussion, or it can also be referred to as a mild traumatic brain injury.
Which puts it in perspective, because concussion has sort of been almost, I guess, downplayed.
Taken lightly.
Yeah, it is taken lightly, because some people, say, oh, got a concussion, feel fine now, though, right? Yeah. You don't think of it as, wow, that's brain trauma.
Yeah, it's a brain trauma. You've literally damaged your brain.
Yeah.
That thing that keeps you alive, one of the two ways to make sure you're actually alive, that's hurt. It's not working properly.
That's not good.
Again, mild side, but the only reason it's mild is because of traumatic brain injuries when you've got like a rod going in.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's one step below that.
That's the line.
Yeah. Is your brain physically exposed, or is something poking into it? No, mild.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the difference.
If it's internal, then you're good.
Yeah. So Kara asked the next question at Happy Kara T. How does a neck injury...
For the record, my favorite one is brain oopsie. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's your favorite. Neil, what's your favorite way of diagnosing concussion?
I like bell rung.
Yeah?
I think it just, it naturally comes to my head.
Oh, absolutely, it does.
Especially in hockey league, your bell rung.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's just such a common terminology.
It is, yeah.
Kara asked, how does a neck injury impact diagnosing a concussion accurately?
The Sidney Crosby situation.
She actually also sent me a link. Apparently this is something that was mentioned about Max Pacioretty at the end of the year when he had his concussion.
Yeah.
She sent me a link that I should probably tweet out at some point. It's a National Post story about how he kind of went through his things and how he wasn't feeling right, and he was stuck in his room and couldn't really do anything. And then... the whole tinted visor being worn sort of thing and all that stuff, saying that he could still have concussion issues and how that all played into it and whatnot. I'll try to remember to send the link. But I love this question because I think it's a good way for me to kind of wrap back to that fact that it's symptomatically diagnosed.
Yeah. I was actually going to bring up the Sidney Crosby situation. We were talking about that. It's like, here's this proof that if you want to know for sure that nothing is really known 100%, it's that Sidney Crosby
exactly.
Because that was like a year or more.
Where there was a lot of it was a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you had expert after expert across the entire first world, and that's just to put it in perspective. I mean, this is a guy who basically had the best treatment you could get, and it was misdiagnosed the whole way.
Yep, because again, there's no proper scan that'll see what's exactly going on.
It's just symptoms.
There's no blood test. It's symptoms. Yeah. So he kept feeling symptoms. They didn't think to check and see if there was tears in his neck. Because again, you feel pain around here, it's going to feel it in your head. If something's torn in your neck, you're going to feel pressure in your head because you're moving it. It's going to hurt. It's radiating pain. It's... I'm forgetting the actual term for it. But...
we probably wouldn't know what it was anyway.
Yeah, make something up.
It's the same thing when you have a heart attack. I'm pretty sure it's... radiating pain? No, it's another R word, but it's like when you have a heart attack and feel it in your shoulder and your arm.
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. You feel it in your neck, it's going to go up into your head because, again, It's the way it feels. So he's feeling it. You feel it in your head. You feel it. You're sensitive to light. You can't move properly. You just don't feel right.
Yeah.
And that's a big sign for concussion. That's one of the questions on the SCAT-3. Do you don't feel right? Yes. Okay. To what level? You could have a concussion still.
And that's what every single professional athlete will say. Obviously, they feel fine.
Yeah. I'm honestly glad he took the extra steps and made sure he felt perfectly fine, and they figured out what it was before he came back.
Yeah.
Again, superstar, don't want him off for longer than he needs to be. He was in the end.
Yeah.
Again,
it was figured out.
Better safe than sorry. But that's generally where it ties in, is that if... And that, again, that's assuming neck muscle injuries. If you have a spinal injury, spinal cord injury, it's all just as terribly awful and bad. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to actual neck muscle injuries and radiating pain, that's where it's going to kind of connect. You're going to know the difference based on how the guy... Well, no, you won't know the difference generally. It's going to feel that way. Your personality might be a little different with concussions just because, again, depending on the brain, part of your brain that's injured, part of the brain that's damaged, you might just be a different person for a lot of the time. You might be more irritable, might be a lot more depressed, might be sad, might feel a lot of anxiety. But again, if you feel different, you might also feel those things just because you feel different. You're so worried about it because concussions have been talked about so much. Yeah. And you're worrying about the repercussions with your family and your kids. You can't play with your kids because you can't move because you just feel like crap. You're literally paralyzed because you can't think right and you can't do anything. So it's not fun. Next question from Pete Tessier at Teddier at Teddier. Why do so many people think they know so much about concussions when the researchers are still learning? I don't necessarily think that's always a bad thing. If people feel like they know so much about it, hopefully they've at least read a few things. There's a lot. The good side of that is that
hopefully they're knowing what there is to know.
Yeah, as long as you know what there is to know. Yeah. If you're acting like, oh, it's probably just because of this, probably just because of that, then you're probably not the right person to be talking to. Yeah. If you've got somebody coming out with a disclaimer saying we don't know a lot, but this is what we do know and this is what we're thinking, then you're probably talking to the right people. That being said, I think a lot of it has to do with how much awareness there is right now. It's important for people to make sure that they're getting the right sources when they're looking for this information. So coaches for sports teams, they've probably been told some things. They're not going to know everything. So if they're acting like they know everything, ask them where they figured it out. If they're reading scientific journals and they're going to lectures and they're learning the kind of stuff they need to be learning.
I would be surprised.
Which, again, yeah, shocking if it is actually happening because, first of all, getting your hands on a lot of those publications isn't cheap. And keeping up to date with it all is not easy. Trust me, I try to do it every day. It's hard. There's a lot coming out. Yeah. And again, finding out which research is actually good and which isn't is another skill in itself that takes a lot of work to figure out if people are using proper methods and proper stats to actually prove they're doing. You can play around a lot with numbers and get them to say what you want them to say. So there's a lot of different ways that they can go around, and hopefully people are taking the right steps to learn. And I know there are the Canadian Athletic Therapy Association, the Manitoba Athletic Therapy Association, they're working on trying to educate coaches and individuals. Sport Manitoba is working on trying to make sure that right education is out there. Most sports are trying to at least now take those steps to make sure that people who need to know, or at least they have someone in the area that knows and knows how to handle them properly. Because as soon as you're looking at a head injury, yeah, concussions are an issue, but there's also neck issues, spinal issues, and things like that need to be dealt with. But I think it's a good thing that people at least know about it. Just don't act like you know too much. Neil, I went and saw you grab something there.
Yeah, this is a yellow card that I've been given for coaching. It's just a quick little concussion management thing. It was given out by Sports Science Manitoba, I believe. I've got it multiple times now from different national coaches certification training sessions and Basketball Manitoba training sessions. I feel like I think it is the exact same card every single time. And it's just like really quick notes. It's very small about what to do if you think one of your players has gotten a concussion.
So what do we have on there? Like, what's the basic stuff?
It's basically, it says a lot of what I've been saying already, just for the baseline stuff. Management, how to deal with them. it gives you kind of the baselines when an athlete shows any signs or symptoms. It says first step is exactly what I said. Don't return to the game. They should go see a doctor instantly. SCAT3 that does mention to be on here. Again, there are a lot of problems with the SCAT3. People can flub it all the time. Science has shown that it can be fluctuated on some very minimal things in your life changing that can say, okay, you have a concussion. It's not true. Again, don't give them aspirin or non-inflammatories. It's iffy. Regular monitoring for leaving them alone. Don't want to leave them alone for the first few hours. That's probably true.
Something that I'm just noticing, taking a quick look here, the main point that they've highlighted at the bottom here in parentheses, or sorry, not parentheses, in quotations, when in doubt, sit them out. That's their kind of like low slogan. When in doubt, sit them out.
Yeah. And again, they have the return to play protocols in here. 6 steps, should take 7 days. Again, no activity, light exercise, sports-specific activity, on-field practice without body contact, on-field practice with body contact.
Is the whole thing that you were talking about
again,
before.
Once being cleared by a medical doctor. That's something people like to forget, is they need to be cleared by a medical doctor again before they start playing.
Yeah.
And then they actually have on the back here, they have signs and symptoms of a concussion, mental status testing, balance testing. This is kind of actually a simplified version of the SCAT3. So you could take someone through this really quick. You're supposed to actually grade all of these, but if they have any of them, generally it's something you want to pull them. Mental status testing, it's just simple questions like where are you? You can ask them a couple testing questions. There is one thing they don't have on here. There's actually some memory tests you can do with people, but again, probably want to.
So that's the kind of testing that you've done, that sort of memory testing on me before.
For studies and stuff.
So it's like saying letters or a group of numbers or letters backwards and forwards and
yeah. Repeat these 5 words back to me in any order you can remember them, things like that. Just to make sure people, it's again testing short-term, long-term memory, focusing, attention span, things like that. Things are a little bit more difficult to flub.
Yeah, cognitive processing sort of.
Exactly. So yeah, again, this is the kind of good stuff that they should be giving people. So at least then, like, if someone had a concussion, you had this with you, at least you have an idea what to do, because you don't want to panic.
That's why I like it so much too, because I mean, I am a notorious note taker, but still, even if I had like an hour session on concussion management, those notes that I've taken down wouldn't be as good as this card.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is the specified. This is what you need to know.
Exactly.
No matter what. And simply, honestly, in my opinion, the easiest thing you need to know: don't bring them back in the game. If they're really suffering, call an ambulance. Get them to a doctor, no matter what. Because they need to see a doctor. They need to. It's that simple. And in the city of Winnipeg, we have a concussion clinic now for kids. If you see a kid getting concussion, they should be getting referred to a specialist if they aren't better instantly. The thing is, most concussions, probably about 90% of them, you're going to be fine in a week. You're going to be okay. But with that 10%, it could be days, it could be months, it could be as many as years before you're okay again. And if you mess with people in those first 7 days and they sustain another concussion, then you're looking at things like second impact syndrome, which can cause brain bleeding, which can cause death. It can be much worse. Paralysis. Yeah. It gets a lot worse if you don't handle it properly. So if someone has a concussion, get them out of there. Yeah. Don't risk a life for a sport.
Yeah, I just heard a story on the news recently about a rugby player who died from second impact syndrome.
Yep.
Was playing a game, got a concussion, and then it was a tournament, I guess, and kind of just said, yeah, all good, and never was looked into any further, and then got a second concussion within a 24 hours sort of thing, and done.
Mm-hmm. And this actually feeds in perfectly to the next question by Peter Tessier at Teddier. Can you once and for all explain to everyone that a concussion is a brain injury and brains never recover 100%? Like I've alluded to before, the thing is, again, 90% of them, you're probably going to be fine in a week. That being said, we don't fully understand it right now. What we generally see is people be normal functioning for the most part, acting fine, no symptoms, usually at the end of those first 7 days. Back to whatever you're doing. Physiologically, maybe a little bit longer. And for the most part, you could live from there on forward a perfectly normal life. Nothing ever comes up again. You're perfectly fine. The weird part on top of that, though, is we know that once someone's had one concussion, they seem to be prone to getting another one and another one and another. Like it's easier.
Is that just like a lifestyle thing, or
again, it could be.
Okay.
It could be that they're exposing themselves to it again. But again, there's people that live and do the same thing, never get a concussion at all. But it seems like once you get one, they keep rolling in. So you got greater odds of sustaining another one. Maybe you're more just at risk and something's going on in your brain where it's not the same ever again. So maybe it does affect you lifelong. If you have multiple, then maybe it is CTE. Maybe you do have other issues occurring. So Again, we don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know. And people don't like accepting that as an answer, but there are some things in this world we do not know. And this is one of them.
There's a lot of the skeptics out there who are just like, well, it's 2015. It's 21st century. Why don't we know this?
Because up to 10 years ago, it was
Nobody
okay.
cared.
And no one gave a shit.
You know what? A lot of people still don't care.
Yeah.
So it's, it's
up until just a few years ago, I mean, Don Cherry used to sell videos of people getting murdered on ice.
Yeah, oh yeah. We were, it's just like, this brings us back to a smoking sort of thing, like we've talked about before when it comes to concussions. When we were in grade 6, like people our age and in their early 20s, when you were going through elementary school, you were like bombarded, absolutely bombarded. And maybe it still is this way. Obviously, I'm not in elementary school anymore, but you're just bombarded with these anti-smoking videos and advertisements and all this stuff. And I mean, you go back to like talking to my parents about it. You go back to when they were in school, they had like little candies that looked like cigarettes that they were.
I had those.
That they were eating, yeah, and they were like literally designed to look like cigarettes, so you could be cool like your parents and have a cigarette.
They were delicious.
Have a cigarette candy, and they were delicious, exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, until everybody cares, it's almost like no one cares.
Exactly.
Because it's just that way with smoking. Because now, like people starting smoking is a very rare thing now. Yeah. Or at least
it still happens,
continuing it. It still happens, but I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, now you can't smoke anywhere. You have to be outside. I mean, sometimes you can't even be close to a building if you want to smoke. Mm-hmm. So, and I mean, not long ago, you could just smoke wherever the hell you wanted. Yeah. So even like in my lifetime, I remember the smoking parts of the restaurant, non-smoking parts, and some restaurants where you can smoke everywhere.
Can you ban people from smoking?
Yeah, exactly. I remember that was a big.
Rights?
Yeah, exactly. I remember that was a big deal, and it's just like, well, now it's just nobody cares because you're just like, if you want to smoke, go outside.
If you're smoking in front of a kid, people look down on you for it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that. Hopefully, that's a good sign of it can do a turn like that in maybe 10 years, and everybody's sort of on that side of concussions being a big deal, but it's definitely not there yet.
Well, it doesn't help when certain sports medicine clinics in the city are saying it's blown up into a bigger deal than it is. So Google that. You'll find that story probably pretty quickly. A comment actually on Pete Tessier's last question about people acting like they know so much about concussions. Smitty at Smitty3700_ on Twitter responded to that saying, personal experience here, had 2 of my own, not severe but still not fun. And I wanted to make a comment on him saying the whole not severe thing. A lot of the time you hear in sports, they've had a minor concussion, a mild concussion. It's not, they're expecting it's not going to be that bad. A concussion is a concussion. That whole mild and whatever thing, that's been thrown out the window for years. That's not how it's looked at anymore. It's a concussion. You're dealing with it the same way regardless. You either have it becomes complex when it lasts for more than 10 days. Then you got other things you have to start dealing with. Every concussion is treated exactly the same. They're not severe is a major misconception. You still have a brain injury. A mild traumatic brain injury has occurred. Your brain is not healthy. Something is wrong with it. I feel like sports kind of made that perception that you can have a severe or non-severe concussion. I'm a little dizzy. It's not bad though. It's not a bad concussion. It's still a brain injury. It should still be dealt with the exact same steps, going from absolutely nothing all the way through. You should not be going to work if you might have a concussion. You probably shouldn't be driving a car if you think you might have a concussion. It's a lot of things you're throwing at your brain out of nowhere when it shouldn't have to deal with them. You're sick. You should be taking care of yourself. It is not cool. So take care of it when you can, because if you don't, it can only get worse.
No, it's that whole mental illness side of things.
Exactly.
Right? Where, I mean, if you can't see it, then, all of a sudden everybody's a skeptic, right?
Yeah.
Because, it's not physically visible, so, maybe they're faking it.
Exactly. And people like to think that that's something, someone has a concussion, they don't enjoy it. It's not fun. It is pretty terrible. Next question from Jason Bicole. I've never actually said his name before. He tweets at us all the time. At JBEKOLAY. How common are severe concussions in general population / amateur athletes? Again, severe concussions, I'm just going to say concussions for that.
Concussions that have long-lasting symptoms.
Yeah, I guess we can go off that as well.
I'm assuming that's what he's alluding to.
Probably. Again, it's usually only about 10% of them that are going to last more than a week.
So how many are those, what is the number for that 10% kind of thing?
That I'm not 100% sure of for Canada. Honestly, research in Canada for how many concussions occur is really shoddy. In the States, it's something like 3.1 or whatever million annually, so each year.
Wow.
Throughout the States. And again, it's most commonly occurring in high school students.
Yeah.
And
most
that's
likely
terrifying,
athletes.
and usually athletes.
Yeah.
But again, I want to emphasize it's not just athletes.
No,
and
of
I'm not
course
sure if
not.
that's what
Well, I mean,
he's
you
getting
slip-
to with
you-
the
you-
difference for population.
You can just slip and fall in real life and not playing sports.
Exactly.
and
And that's
have a
kind of
concussion.
a big emphasis that we're trying to put on it when we do our research is anybody could slip and fall and hit their head.
yeah.
You could be riding your bike,
Yeah.
fall, hit your
Just
head.
Go for a walk.
A helmet doesn't prevent a concussion. A helmet stops you from cracking your skull open and dying.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop you from getting concussion. That's why people like football helmets, yeah, they're great. Not going to stop a concussion. It's going to stop you from cracking your head on that other helmet that guy's wearing.
Yeah.
So that's why helmets are there. They're not there to prevent concussions. That's not what they do. Especially in hockey, they are not concussion prevention. If you look on any helmet and it says it helps prevent a concussion, they've either been sued or are currently being sued for saying that because it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not possible. They don't know what causes them yet. How can you prevent something if A, you can't diagnose it, and B, you don't know what causes it?
Yeah.
You know what happens, you don't know how it happened. So stop acting like you can prevent them. Mouth guards? No, that's the biggest crock of crap I've ever seen in my life.
That's was it Under Armour? I think it's Under. I used to work at Sport Check. That was a part-time job I had when I was in university and college or trade school. And I remember seeing that. This is right when Travis was kind of starting off. This was a few years ago. Travis was just starting to get into the concussion stuff. So, him and I would talk about it. And so I had a kind of a general idea of the basic understanding of what he would tell me. And I remember seeing when Under Armour came out with their line of mouth guards that have been out for a while now, but this is when they originally started marketing them. When Under Armour was becoming sort of a bigger brand at this time, and they were expanding some of their stuff, and there's this mouth guard line out, and they had like different colors and meant for different things. Like this one's for these sports, this one's for they had one for like golf too, like literally because they were talking about all these different benefits you have with these concussions. There's a little like matrix with like the what sport it was for and like what it can help you with, and they would like check off which one checks off what boxes, right? And one of them was just like concussion prevention, and it was like check marks all the way across. And then I was like, I need to look into this more, and there's a little like quick fact book in the display that was with these mouth guards. So I just took a little gander through, didn't even make a single mention about it. It talked about every single other thing. And I'm like, okay, so what are they possibly getting at? And I think at the time I even texted you, I'm like, how does a mouth guard help prevent a concussion? And you were like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I remember there was a dentist in the city too who had advertised, get a mouth guard.
Custom fit mouth guards,
prevent concussions. Yeah. And then within like 3 or 4 months,
gone.
The same commercial, no mention of concussions anymore because it doesn't do anything. But yeah, I don't know if you're getting to the whole difference between general population and athletes versus professional athletes or anything like that. But as a whole, about 90% of them you're going to be fine in a week. Concussions are concussions. 10% of them might be a bit more long-term, a bit more complicated. From there, it's who knows, about 3.1 million in the States. So if you want to correlate that to the general population, I think it's like 30-some-odd thousand just because of the numbers in Canada. But again, it's not even for concussions. It's just for things that could relate in a way. And those are all reported ones, never mind ones that aren't reported. Yeah. So there's a lot of issues that come into the numbers. One of my friends who's working on his PhD on this topic as well is doing his methods or his intro section talking about incidence and prevalence rates and how we really have no idea because people either overreport them or underreport them. People don't know how to actually diagnose them. Doctors might say it's one when someone else doesn't even send them to the doctor because they don't think they've got one. It's a lot more complicated than a heart attack where it's like, yeah, you had a heart attack. This many people have heart attacks. Yeah, you have diabetes. This many people have diabetes. Because a lot of people don't report their concussions. So
you can't just not report your diabetes.
Exactly. You're going to have it.
Yep.
You're probably going to die. And then they'll figure out you had diabetes anyways.
Exactly.
So it is what it is. They're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Next question. Christopher Ungarian? I know we've said his name before.
Hungarian?
Yeah, it might be Hungarian. At Caungurian. Is Bettman lying or is it possible the NHL brass is unaware of the extent of the problem?
I find that very hard to believe.
I don't think he's lying. I think he is a smart man playing what he thinks is a smart play right now.
Yeah,
because
he's right. I refuse to believe that the NHL isn't at the forefront of what is going on.
I know that they're involved in a lot of the research going on.
There's no way that they're dumb enough to not know everything there is to know about this.
I can't say a lot about it, but I know the NHL does take them.
They can't not.
Behind the scenes, they make it look like they take them seriously. Now, the actual practice of which
exactly. Now whether that knowledge is applied is a different story, but I guarantee you
they know what's going on.
It's there.
Yeah, they know what's happening. Again, a lot of it might have to do with the players and whether or not they're continuing with what's
and
happening.
Let's just say there's one guy whose job it is in the NHL to be up to date on the concussion stuff. Who knows how far down from him the information goes, right?
Yeah.
It might go 2-3 levels down, gets to the GMs, and it ends there. Who knows?
Well, on top of it all these teams have doctors.
Yeah,
these doctors
exactly.
know what's going on. If you're a sports doctor, you know what's happening in concussion research, or at least you have a colleague that does.
Even separate from the NHL side
exactly.
of things.
So there's knowledge out there for sure.
Yeah, I find it so hard to believe that any professional sports league now wouldn't be at the forefront of these sort of issues.
And the fact that it's been in the courts for so long.
Well, yeah. Every
Right?
every league should be familiarizing themselves with it in case they have a case like this come up.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this isn't just, yes, hockey has a big prevalence of it. Yes, football has a huge prevalence of it. Women's soccer is like one of the worst for concussions. Basketball is always on the list. Rugby is always on the list. A lot of sports people play all the time. A lot of the people I've seen with them were biking, and they fell and hit their heads. And again, that's not necessarily professional athletes. These are kids biking that fall and hit their heads, concussions for months, taking them out of school and stuff like that. Like, it's, imagine not being in school for months on end because you can't think straight.
Yeah.
And then trying to get back, and you can't see your friends, can't do anything because you just can't think straight. Or being a parent, falling on a bike, you can't play with your kids anymore because you just can't think, because we can't help you because we don't know what's going on. It's frustrating. Last question, and then we'll get into our regular stuff. Again, from Jason Bicole. Any thoughts on nutrition with respect to concussion recovery, in particular low carb or ketogenic diets? That I honestly have no idea. I've seen a little bit of research on it. Again, it might have some connection with the whole metabolic disorder side. But I really, honestly, just want to be honest, I have no idea. I'm not going to try to pull some answer out of my ass because I don't know. I tried to look, didn't find too much. I just don't think we're at the point to look at specific ways to recover from concussions at this point. Okay. So, Neil, do we have a shootout this week?
No, that was super. That was a great question. I've been researching the ketogenic diet for a while now. One of my favorite authors is on it now to try and get rid of his Lyme disease, and it's just been super fascinating. And I think that's a great question. Who's that from?
Jason Bicole? I'm not
That's
sure.
awesome. Now I'm gonna start reading about it. No shootout though. I should have done a whole concussion shootout now that I think about it.
I think I might kick Joe's butt in that though.
Yeah, it's not really a fair contest.
I've both had one, and I've both had one. I've had ridiculous ones, and I've studied one. So I studied them, so I know a lot about them.
Had none of those things happen.
Yeah, so I think a few of us learned some things this week. Joe, what did you learn?
Yeah, here's an interesting little factoid for you. As our friend Trevor Mond would say, stats for your ass. What I learned this week, if you watched the Anaheim Ducks and Chicago Blackhawks game.
Which one? They've all been 8 games long, so.
Sorry, the last one. That's what I meant. The most recent one.
Yesterday?
Yesterday's game.
Saturday night's
after game. Saturday night's game. After the Ducks scored 3 goals in 37 seconds. Or was it 32? 37. I think it was 37.
37.
It was awesome.
It was
Corey Crawford's so
crazy.
bad.
It was 37 seconds. It was ridiculous. They were down
4-1,
4-1
and they were up 5-4
yeah,
within like a minute.
It's just ridiculous. Anyways, that happened. So that happened, and then I saw this today. In 1979, the Maple Leafs scored 3 goals in 23 seconds. Okay, so that's whatever.
The good old days.
It doesn't matter on whom. It doesn't matter when, in terms of date or in the playoffs or regular season, whatever. It happened in 1979. Joel Quenneville, head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks, had an assist on one of them.
Oh, cool.
And Bruce Boudreau, head coach, or used to be head coach of the, or is he currently?
He's head coach of the Ducks.
Yeah, head coach of the Ducks. I don't know why I thought he wasn't. Currently head coach of the Ducks, was actually playing for the Maple Leafs. He wasn't on the team at that time. He was in their farm system. But, that's just ridiculous.
That is insane.
So both Joel Quenneville and Bruce Boudreau were in the Leafs system at the time that they scored 3 goals in 23 seconds, and Joel Quenneville actually assisted on the third one.
That's crazy.
Wow.
They just met up behind the benches and had that almost exact situation happen 4 seconds different, 5 seconds different.
That is madness.
Yeah, ridiculous, right?
That is, wow.
Yeah.
Neil, did you learn anything this week?
I kind of put I watched last night's game, and they didn't get in the 3 overtimes, but it was
2
Double
overtimes,
overtime.
yeah.
It was kind of, I don't know how deep it was in the second. But I really started thinking about, especially after the triple overtime game with, again, it was the Ducks and the Blackhawks. That's an entire another game.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. They've basically already played like 2 more games. They've played 6 games basically at this point in the series.
Which is crazy because like NBA 5 extra minutes. NFL, there's like another quarter, but it ends really, really quickly. Baseball, extra innings. Hockey, like that's so much more time.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is so much more time.
Can you imagine being like at that game on a weeknight or something? Where you have to work
That's
the
what
day?
I was thinking, right? Because during that triple overtime game, I was at Smitty's and I went home. I think it was after the first overtime, and I'm a little bitch, man. I go to bed really early, and my friend who said that he stayed up, he's a Ducks fan. He stayed up the entire time. Didn't get to bed until like 12:30 or like 1.
Yeah, it definitely would have been after because I was up until 12:45, and I fell asleep before the third.
Okay, so it was even later than that. So yeah, I can't even imagine being in that arena.
Yeah,
you know, like
it's crazy.
Oh my god! So I don't know. I've just been maybe I didn't learn anything, but that's just so long.
It is very long.
That's crazy long.
It's yeah. And
Hockey
Blackhawks
overtime.
have been involved in 2 triple overtimes already. This
Hockey overtime
playoffs.
is madness.
Yeah, it's awesome though. It's so like nerve wracking. Even
It
though
is.
it slows down pretty crazy, it's so nerve wracking.
Yeah.
Any second, game could be over.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because that's what I love about hockey compared to basketball is that you're consistently anticipating stuff.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know. You can kind of see the rhythm, the ebbs and the flows and stuff, but anything could happen. Really, like a goal can happen at any time.
From
but
center ice, if you're Andre Pavlik.
Yeah.
Hey yo.
On the other side of the ice, if you're Vesatoskala.
Yep. Ah, damn it.
Sorry, I had
Stupid
to.
Leafs. But yeah. It's been crazy amount of overtimes in this playoffs, and it's been some long ones. It's been a while since we've had a playoff. I think at least it's been a while since we had a playoffs with this many like extended overtimes. Speaking of extended overtimes,
Go ahead, yeah.
Andrew Shaw could have ended that game much earlier if they would have counted a headbutt goal, which is one of the things I learned.
Yes.
You cannot score with your head if you do it deliberately.
On purpose, yeah.
You can't. Again, I think it makes sense. The rule. It's kind of silly because how are you ever going to hurt anybody by like trying to header a puck out of the air? But I guess it's part of the game. You can't really like in any other part of your body. You can't do it with your hands because you just start people
Obviously.
throwing pucks. Can't do it with your feet because if you're kicking skate blades around, that's just not
Dangerous.
safe for anybody.
Yeah.
Can't really need it. I just can't do anything other than your stick. So, interesting rule. I did not know that rule was every part of your body. For a while, I thought that goal counted. It's kind of disappointing that it didn't, but I understand it. Other thing I learned this week is we might finally have a replacement for Cap Geek, my friends.
Oh, really?
GeneralFanager.com. Steve Dangle talked about it a few times on his podcast. I've checked it out. It looks okay. There are a couple other ones starting to float around. Silly Gary Bettman also saying ridiculous things about how fans don't want this.
Why?
I don't know. Because he's an idiot. No, he's actually really smart.
Yeah.
I think it's the
that's
owners
what-
and general managers don't want fans to have it.
When he says stuff like that, when he says something that appears stupid on the surface, I'm always so curious because I know he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why he's saying it. So like it always intrigues me what he says. I want to understand his angle.
Exactly. But yeah, generalfanager.com. Check it out if you like it. Great, because I've liked it so far. I don't see any too big problems with it. It's only going to keep getting better from here on out. So
Especially once more people start recognizing, you might get donations. Help out a
Exactly.
little bit, yeah.
Oh, I should probably turn off my noise.
Capkey just raised the bar so high.
Oh, yeah.
So high.
Yep. There's a couple other ones floating around, but that was the one that's kind of stuck with me so far.
Cool.
Joe, do you have a spelling bee for us?
I do.
You do, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Give me a second. I'm looking at General Manager. It doesn't. It's definitely not as pretty as.
yeah, it's not Cap Geek
Cap
level
Geek,
yet, but it's getting there.
It's the SPELLINGB,
Gotta remember I before E.
except after C. It's the spelling bee.
All right, so as I'm sure many of you are aware,
I don't have a pen. Shit.
the Women's World Cup is coming to Canada and to
This is where we're going with this.
Winnipeg. Yeah. Oh, we got to. You got to go off, but anyways, it's on its way. It'll be here soon. July, I guess it's starting.
June, I think.
Oh, June, really?
Yeah, it's very
See,
soon.
I don't even know. We were gonna buy tickets, but then they only released like multi-game packs at the beginning, so we were like, screw that. We just want to go see a single game. And then they released single game packs, and we were kind of just like, eh.
Yeah.
It's
If
not
we
gonna-
happen to have like a chance,
Yeah.
we might go to one.
It's not gonna sell out, so I feel like we might be able to get tickets to the door. Anyways, check it out if you can. Investors Group Field. It'll be fun times. Women's World Cup. I think it's China and. Or no, that's not the group. We don't have Canada here. We have somebody else.
The
I don't
States,
even know.
though.
Yeah,
States,
the States
Australia.
are here. Yeah.
China, and I want to say like it's an African country. Anyways, what are we spelling, Joe?
States, yeah. Anyways, you got yourself a high quality team.
Oh! Sorry.
Neil's watching the basketball game.
LeBron
LeBron James
James.
is like crazy.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, let's spell.
That was really loud.
Aggressive.
That was-
What are we
yeah.
spelling, Joe?
Hey, what are we spelling? Okay. Women's World Cup team midfielder. She's actually a new addition to the team as of 2014. So you may have
Canada?
you may have not seen any of her or heard her name before, which is perfect. She actually only has 4 caps for the national team. For anybody who's not familiar with soccer, when you play an international game, you get what's called a cap, which means you played in the game. I don't know where that comes from or why, and
I learned something today.
and it doesn't.
There you go.
Yep, and it doesn't count for like your club team. That's not a cap. Those are appearances. But
That's weird.
Your club team, it's just a cap. Anyways, it's weird. I don't know why. I'm sure there's a history there.
Damn it, the music's over. We haven't got the name yet,
You
Joe.
haven't talked to music.
sorry.
That's impressive.
Anyways, the person we're trying to spell today, it's got a little bit of an Italian twist to it, just to give you an idea. It's a midfielder from Edmonton. Edmonton. Sorry, I
Struggling here.
and from Edmonton, Alberta, Selenia Lacelli.
Ooh, that's a pretty name.
Yeah, she's pretty good looking too.
Selenia.
Not gonna lie.
Selenia.
Selenia Lacelli.
Okay, don't think too hard.
All right, that's what I'm going with.
Okay, hit me. Let's do it.
All right. Selenia.
Yeah.
Shit, now I'm already reconsidering this. I'll do it with this, just to be different.
I just-
Celenia.
Celenia.
Lacelli.
Yeah.
Chellii.
Oh,
Okay.
we're close. I just texted you mine.
Oh, you texted?
I don't have a pen.
Oh
in
man,
front
this
of
is
me.
like next level. This communication here. This is Neil's guess. Celenia.
Ooh.
Same thing as Trav.
Latchelley. Interesting.
Oh, close.
Two slightly different approaches, both going for the C, which is wrong.
Ah, damn it. I had an S and I changed it.
That's too bad for you guys. So the proper spelling is Selenia, S-E-L-E.
S.
Selenia, Selenia. I got verification on the pronunciation of both these names, by the way. Just I'm not just guessing. Lacelli is Lacchelli. Got the double C in there.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
That's
cheating.
classic Italian move.
Yeah, that's
Lacelli.
true.
That's why I
true.
gave you the heads up on the
Yeah,
Italian.
that's true.
Should've read it.
Anyways,
Oh.
fun fact here. This just kind of came together nicely when I was putting it together. She actually owns Selenia Lacelli. She owns and operates a food truck business with her Canadian international teammate Emily Zurer. It's called Sweet Ride. And
Oh my God.
It sells frozen yogurt and Belgian waffles in the Vancouver area.
That's amazing.
They're
So
just
that's-
all over the
Shout
map.
out the food trucks, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so
pretty sweet.
yeah, it's kind of neat.
It's a sweet ride.
And they're both actually Umbro sponsored athletes as well. So
Cool.
Team Canada Umbro sponsored, and they own a food truck. And I think she's also an athletic therapist or something like that. I saw on her
Wow,
Twitter.
just a woman
She's
of
a-
many talents,
Yeah.
eh?
Busy lady.
And she's actually had she's sort of like a story of inspiration because she had a lot of injury issues that hampered her professional career, and she played for the U16s, U18s, and U20s for Canada, but never made it into the full national squad because of all these injuries she had.
Yeah.
And then basically,
Was she the one that got her chance with the coat when they changed coaches and then
Yes.
this coach gave her a shot?
Yes.
And now, that girl.
Yes,
Ah, dang it! I saw
exactly.
her featured on
Yep,
TSN.
see, she's like a comeback sort of story.
Damn
She
it.
won some sort of award for pure perseverance because her professional career was actually very hampered by these injuries.
Round of applause.
Good
for
job.
Selena
Yeah,
Shelley.
no
She
kidding.
was set up. She was going to be going overseas playing for a team in England, and she broke her arm, failed the medical, blah blah blah. So she had a lot of issues, but
Jeez.
back on track.
The
That is a
food truck
sweet
is
looking
really
ride.
a sweet ride.
That is
Yeah.
a sweet ride. I didn't even look up the food truck.
That's pretty sweet.
I found its Twitter account. That's how I did the research.
Cool.
Froyo and like what a hell of a combination.
Yeah, Belgian waffles. I'd put frozen yogurt on my Belgian waffle. That sounds
Oh,
pretty good.
I'm assuming that's what they do. I sure as hell hope so.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty delicious to me.
I got more things to research after this show here.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so that's about it for today, I think, folks. That's the
Whoops.
wrong music, Neil. There we go. Oh yeah. I missed this. We didn't get to do the music live last week, so I didn't get to hear it until I re-listened to the podcast. But if you want to get a hold of us, ask us more concussion questions. Maybe I'll get to a few of them in the future, or maybe we'll do something like this when research actually catches up a little bit. At JetStreamPod, hashtag JetStream. If you follow us on Twitter, then you can keep up and know when we want you guys to send us questions so we can answer them. You can also check out the website, www.jetstreampodcast.com. JetStreamPodcast@gmail.com is our email address if you ever want to email us questions as well. At THRUBENIUK is my Twitter handle. You can ask me directly some questions and I'll try to answer them. I try to help people out whenever. I know a few people DM me some questions about concussions here or there, and I try to answer them when I can. Or they'll DM me situations. They're like, "Should this guy come back?" And I was like, "Did he look like he had a concussion?" And they're like, "Yep." And I was like, "Probably not." It's that simple, folks. At JW_Clark20 is Joe's Twitter handle, and Neil's at Neil Noonan, NEILNOONAN. Subscribe and rate us on iTunes if you're listening on any of the other platforms. And also check out ArcticIceHockey.com. You'll get all the links for everything there. I'll post it all there hopefully as soon as I can, or as soon as Neil tells me the episode is up. Yeah, it's a good episode today, boys. Hopefully we helped some people out. What if we saved a life? Talking about concussions.
I would be amazed, but I'd be happy.
If we saved your child's life because you don't put them back into a sport, I'll be pleased. Yep. And let me know if I saved a life. I want to know about how many lives I saved. I feel good about myself.
Keep a running tally.
I learned how little we know today.
Yeah.
You know, like coming from you, like how just the fact that like it's symptom based still. Yep. You know, that's crazy to me.
It's good for me too because that means I'm gonna have a job for a
while.
No
kidding. Hey, yeah, you found the right spot.
Job security.
Oh, it's sweet. Although they are still like researching, like more research at my facility has to do with like ACL. We know a lot about this already, but find out more. Thanks for listening, folks. We're out.